Cricket media used to be pretty simple. Find your favourite newspaper, head to Cricinfo, and maybe a blog you'd like. Now just finding the best stories and writing is a huge challenge. You already have a job. You just want to read about cricket. Well, that is what the best of cricket is currently doing. They go out daily to find the newest cricket coverage and the best stories from any publication in the world. And when they can't discover what they want, they also hire some of the best writers to produce their own great stories. You can get the best of cricket via their website or on WhatsApp. They find cricket's best stories and give them to you every day.
Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Overthrows podcast. I'm Behram, who you can find at DefMango on Twitter. And with me, as always, is Jarrod, who you can find absolutely everywhere. And the premise of today's Overthrows podcast is, we're going to be previewing Pakistan's upcoming two-match test series versus the West Indies on home soil. Last test series in this particular World Test Championship cycle for both of these teams. It's a bit inconsequential, Jarrod, of course, because they're both right at the bottom of the table. And in an alternate universe where we already had a tiered system where there is promotion and relegation, this could have been a massive series.
I was thinking of that too. Like, it's actually a bit of a shame, isn't it? Because you could have had this this great series where the two teams were playing, and we're going to see what was going to happen next. It's interesting though, because you take the World Test Championship away, and this is a fascinating series to see exactly what is going on with Pakistan. And the West Indies are not like a great side or anything like that, but Gudakesh Modi and Jamal Warrican are like genuine spinners, right? So there's some interesting takes here, like the fact that Pakistan have decided that seam bowling no longer exists in Pakistan.
Yeah, I mean, interestingly enough, both of Jamel Warrican and Gudakesh Modi are slow left armers, and that is a bowling type that Pakistan batters generally tend to struggle against. But it's also very, very fascinating what you mentioned next of how Pakistan are now, completely knees deep into the spin to win strategy. And I don't know if you've seen the pictures or not that Varun has shared, but head curator Tony Hemming, he's basically greenhousing it in Multan. So originally we saw patio heaters and fans, but now we've got a greenhouse kind of encapsulating the patio heaters and fans as well. So drastic measures, but honestly, at least we have result-oriented cricket,
Yes, no, definitely. I should say that I think we've got Tony Hemming will be on our podcast soon.
Oh, okay.
I've been
That's
chatting
nice.
to him about some other things, and then I said, "Why don't you just come on the podcast? And we'll talk about some stuff." So a really interesting guy. So we can hothouse the greenhouse with him, and see how that goes. But yeah, look, as you said, they're going towards that. I remember someone on one of the lives or something that I did ages ago when Pakistan was really struggling, going, "Why don't they just go all in with spin?" And I was like, well, the reason is they don't really trust their spin. It worked, obviously, when they had, in those two tests against England. And now they've gone completely the other way, right? And I'm not saying that West Indies is a team that's going to beat them, but they are going to play some test matches where, I don't know, Rachin Ravindra is going to take a 6-wicket haul, or Glenn Phillips is going to take a 4-wicket haul, or Aiden Markram's going to take a 5-for, right? And they're going to lose, right?
Yeah.
But it may not be the West Indies, and it wasn't England. So to be fair to them, they're going to keep running with it for a while.
I mean, Pakistan had a horrendous record at home for the last 2-3 years.
Exactly.
Or a couple of years, I feel, on these sort of surfaces which offered nothing. They were dead, they were flat tracks, roads, and you would have 5-day tests. Teams would be scoring 850, and somehow England would manage to win. But like that Rawalpindi test that Australia played in Pakistan is the perfect example of what test cricket shouldn't be. So I'm at least happy that there will be a result for sure. And a lot of people have been asking me, Jarrod, can this backfire? Well, it could always backfire because you're making the game toss dependent to a certain extent, where you don't want to bat last. But in Pakistan's favor, I would say, or to their credit, they did defeat England batting last on a turning track in Rawalpindi not too long ago. And that worked. But I think West Indies spin bowling duo is far more potent. The one thing I will say, though, is that you've got Kevin Sinclair with those two spinners who offers a bit of right arm off spin. And maybe a certain Roston Chase should have been selected for this series. I felt that.
Yeah, Sinclair. I mean, I wouldn't mind facing Roston Chase. Like, I think Sinclair's probably a better bowler than Roston Chase. I don't think. I'd be shocked if anyone disagreed with that, having watched them both bowl. Roston Chase, though, brings you a little bit in, he's a very good fielder. Not that Sinclair's not, but Roston Chase is a very good fielder. And obviously Roston Chase is a frontline batter. Sinclair can bat. It just hasn't translated. How many tests has he played? He's only played a couple of tests, but at the international level, we haven't seen him make any runs. It's worth saying that they probably think that Sinclair is a better bowler than Roston Chase, and that, I don't know, who would you compare Sinclair to? I think they think he can bat, right? In that sort of Robin Peterson type of cricketer.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No one thinks he's going to be Roston Chase or anything. He's not going to be batting at number 4, but he's made first class hundreds and averages in the mid-30s. He averages more than some of their specialist batters do, Behram. So if they're looking for a threat, if Gudakesh is bowling well and Sinclair's at the other end, and then if they do think it's going to rag sideways, Warwick might be one of the best spinning bowlers in the world when the wicket is ragging, right? Like the problem with Warwick is that there's two. Do you know the whole story about left arm finger spin in Jamaica?
No, I don't.
Do you remember Nikita Miller?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Do you know what Nikita Miller's first class bowling average is?
I do not.
If you had to guess, if you just picked a random number, where do you think you would come up?
28.
28 seems like a fair thing for someone that we saw occasionally at test level who had a little bit of talent. I think that's a very, very good record. Nikita Miller's first class bowling average is 16.3.
16 point what? That's insane.
Nikita Miller took 5.38 wickets per game.
Wow.
His economy rate domestically was 1.99, and he took his wickets at 16.31. So the left arm finger spinner that replaced him, you're not going to be shocked to know this bit, is Jamal Warrican. So Jamal Warrican, I think his bowling average in first class cricket's like 21. I think what that tells you is that these are very much bowlers who are specialists on wickets that were set up for them. So a little bit like what we saw with someone like Jack Leach. And with Nikita Miller, he just never really managed to make it work anywhere else, right? Like it just didn't work. There's no way of looking at that and saying that Nikita Miller went on to have a decent career, because he really didn't. Jamal Warrican has been pretty much similar. If Pakistan are giving him this kind of wicket, though, surely that changes things, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I trust Warrican and Moti, and Sinclair is a bit of a question mark right now. I'm not quite sure how he'll go, but I do feel like, look, who's the other spinner? Brathwaite with his moon balls, right? They don't have other options.
Kavim Hodge will bowl. So again, Kavim Hodge is he's not quite as quick as Rachid Ravindra, but he's probably like a Rachid Ravindra spinner at test level in that, I mean, when he was younger, he was a proper spinner. When I worked with him in St. Lucia, we used him as our frontline spinner, right? He wasn't the best spinner in the squad, but he was good enough. He does have some spinning talent. If you put him on wickets like this, he's more Rachid Ravindra than he is Glenn Phillips, but it gives him another option again.
Interesting. What about Rakeem Cornwall? Do you think he could have potentially made it to the squad?
I mean, yes. He would have been great. How many left-handers does Pakistan have?
Saud Shakil, Shan Masood.
Yes, there's a couple.
Who else do we
there?
have? Yeah, I can't think of any more. I think
when the wickets, my memory of the wickets against England, and obviously this might be completely different.
I mean,
but
if Imam plays, yes, Varun is correct. If Imam plays, he's another lefty.
Yeah. My memory of the wickets was that it was more low bounce than high bounce. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that is fair to say.
So I suppose from that, from that side of things, that maybe takes away some of what Rakeem Cornwall does. But when he's bowled in Asia, I think he's been pretty good, hasn't he? Like I'd have to look up his stats altogether. But my memory of Rakeem Cornwall bowling in Asia was he's a pretty decent bowler. So he looks in pretty good form. He slogged a couple of Shaheen Afridi the other day in the BPL. So look, I would probably pick him, but I just think that's gone, isn't it? I think they've moved on. Sinclair is 4 or 5 years younger than him. Probably more of a traditional batter than Jimbo is.
He can also do the cartwheel in the air or whatever you call that, the air
He's a
flip
good
that Jimbo
athlete.
probably can't.
And I know that, not everyone gets picked for their athleticism, but he is a good athlete. So I think there's a few things there that you would say is probably fair enough to not take him. But I just think they've moved on. I don't think it's kind of any of those things. Jamal Warrican, 40 wickets at an average of 14 in Sabina Park.
Wow. Okay, so that kind of paints a picture for us. Interestingly enough, though, Pakistan, knowing that they're going for the spin to win strategy, have only selected 3 frontline spinners. Now, I'm assuming all 3 of those guys will
They only
play.
needed 2 last time.
Yeah, Sajid and Numan will obviously play, and Abrar will join them. And I'm kind of happy for Abrar because England broke his back, literally, quite literally, like sent him to the hospital after that first test in Multan, which wasn't a turning track, and he will get to redeem himself and exercise those demons. But I was just thinking to myself, why not give yourself more options in a series which is consequential? Blood some young cricketers who can also turn the ball. Like there is a kid, Mubassir Khan, who has been playing Pakistan's domestic tournament, the Quaid-e-Azam Trophy, quite successfully over the last few years. In fact, 2 years in a row, he was player of the tournament, and he bowls a bit of right arm off break. Then you've got Mehran Mumtaz, who they could have blooded. There's this new wrist spinner on the circuit called Ramiz Jr., who has 62 wickets in 12 first-class games at 25 or less than 25 apiece. And he did well in the practice game versus the West Indies as well. I felt Pakistan could have at least given themselves one more spin bowling option in the squad. You need not play that option, but multiple combinations, when you have them in front of you, you can go a few different ways. Now they've kind of just picked a squad in which they know they're starting 11 and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite common for home tests, to be fair, mate. Like if they've decided exactly what they're going to do in that first test, then you don't usually stuff around, right? Like the only time you do stuff like that is when you don't know. So I don't have an issue with that, as long as they've got all those people sort of in their mind frame, right? Like as long as all those people they're thinking about them going ahead. The only thing I would say is this series not a free hit for both teams?
Exactly. That's what I was thinking.
So if it's a free hit, I think if that's the case, then Sinclair makes more sense than Rakim Cornwall or Roston Chase. And if it's a free hit, then the other side of it is that Pakistan should, instead of, I think we know what, I would go as far as to say we know what Abrar Ahmed can do. Maybe they want to see him on one of these spinning pitches to see if that changes him a little bit. But I would go as far as saying we know what he can do as a player. Is there a chance of bringing in another spinner? But
exactly.
But the way that they played last time, maybe no one else gets a ball anyway, and so we're being a little bit silly here. Perhaps if they win this first test, they have the opportunity in the second test to just be like, well, let's see what we can do.
Yeah, I would have loved for Pakistan to blood a young spinner or maybe like a spin bowling all-rounder because there were quite a few players. I've named 3 over here who they could have potentially gone with. But here's the interesting one. They've dropped our man. Mohammad Abbas is not in the squad, Jarrod. And to me, on this sort of surface where you're only going to play one seamer, we know Pakistan will only play one seamer. Would you not, or you could go for 2 types of bowlers, right? Fast bowlers. Either you go for an enforcer, right? Who could maybe, kind of extract something from a dead pitch in terms of fast bowling. Or you go with a stock bowler who could land the ball in the same area all day and seam it either way. And yes, West Indian batters could step out of their crease to Abbas, but then Rizwan could come up to the stumps as well. Like there are a few things that could happen over here. And I have no clue why they've just discarded him right after a successful series in South Africa. And here's a guy who with a lot of experience, who will land it in the same spot all day. So I was a bit baffled by that decision.
Yeah, I think you're right with probably the 2 different kinds of bowlers you go for. I'm not massively upset that they haven't picked him. Partly just on the basis of these are not the conditions. If he gets picked for this test, right, and doesn't get smashed everywhere, you and I both know there is like a potential that he will disappear again, right? Like that, that he would be the player that we that we want him to be. But they've got rid of Nasim Shah as well, haven't they?
Yes,
he's not in the squad.
In fact, this is the statement directly from PCB's press release. The pace quartet of Amir Jamal, Mohammad Abbas, Mir Hamza, and Naseem Shah has been rested to manage their workloads. Manage their workloads after a 2-match test series? That doesn't quite add up to me. I know Naseem and Shaheen have to play the Champions Trophy, and Shaheen doesn't seem to be in their test plans at all. But Naseem Shah could have been that enforcer type bowler, right? Who also has a bit of experience. It's just very baffling selection in my
that's
view.
That's why I brought him up, because I kind of think that the two kind of bowlers that you talked about, they had both of them available to them.
Yeah.
Look, I get it. If they are trying to do something else, I'm not against that. I don't think, based on the greenhousery that we have seen so far, that they're that worried about pace, would be my guess. If you're resting 4 bowlers, like 4 bowlers is a lot of bowlers to rest.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you're resting 4 bowlers, I think that's you saying, actually, we don't think we're going to use any of this.
I mean, sure, I get that. And I mean, there's another idea over here that you only get to play 5 to 6 test matches a year. So do you really want to rest those bowlers that you'll need in the future? But
well, also,
again,
I mean, Mohammad Abbas's case, he bowls about 10,000 overs a game for Hampshire. Like, I think we know he doesn't need to be rested.
That's true. Also, I mean, they have gone on and selected 3 seamers despite knowing that it will turn. So that's where the selection, just the math is not mathing for me. You know, you could have picked someone else, but you've gone for 3 seamers in Muhammad Ali, who hasn't been able to cut it at international level. Then there's Kashif Ali, who is a right arm quick, hasn't debuted for Pakistan. He's taken 84 wickets in 26 first-class games at less than 30 apiece, and he's 30 years old. So that's where he's at, right? And then you've got Khurram Shahzad, who I think should start because he's the guy who's been playing a lot of test matches for Pakistan in recent times. But, you know, if you were picking 3 seamers, then might as well have an experienced head in there. Like, I don't get it.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. It's that was my thought of, like, if you remember, Pakistan have been doing this for a while, of like picking a seamer who is like inexperienced or has been around for ages and hasn't quite made it at test level, and like then giving them this really important job. When you have senior seamers around at times. So it is a bit baffling the way that they continually do that. But yes, let's see. How old did you say was Kashif Ali?
30.
Okay.
Is he not?
No, on Crick Info they've got him listed at 22.
Say what?
Yeah, no, I'm not saying you're right or they're right. Like,
No,
I'm just saying.
Maybe I've looked at the wrong Kashif Ali.
I mean, it's worth saying on Crick Info that there is virtually no information about him as a human being.
No. So this guy is a bowler. Hopefully, we've got the right Kashif
They
Ali.
don't even have him listed on Crick Info as a bowler.
Wow. They think he's a batter. That's brilliant. Yeah, you're right.
Well, no, they don't have him listed as a batter. They just have him listed as a mammal. Like, it doesn't say here whether he's a batter or a bowler. Like, he's just a human being who plays cricket.
Well, I might have looked at the wrong Kashif Ali then, so my apologies to all of those people who... Oh, so there's another Kashif Ali with a bowling average of 29. I wonder which one they've picked.
That's what I mean. Crick Info might have put the one on their squad page. It's very possible. But
I think Crick Info is right over here. I must have made the mistake. So sorry to all pro sports viewers. I'll go make that correction whenever I'm on that podcast next. But yeah, he's a seamer who's done well for the Shaheen's team recently, and I don't have any issues with that. It's just that if he's the lone seamer in the attack, I don't know if he can kind of handle that pressure of Test cricket. But anyway, we shall see, because Pakistan does do this quite frequently, and every now and then a seamer does rise above the ranks. Next big thing that Pakistan have done over here with respect to the squad, of course, as you know, Saim Ayub is injured, and we don't even know if he'll be fit in time for the Champions Trophy or not. We'll get those medical reports this week. They've also dropped Abdullah Shafiq. He was in a woeful patch of form, but he's someone who's done well for Pakistan in Test cricket. So I think he potentially should have been given a longer rope, especially when the alternative is to bring back Imam ul Haq, who is tried and tested. And we all know that if you take Rawalpindi out, his test numbers are pathetic. Let's be real. He's averaging less than 30. But they've also picked, once again, they've selected Mohammad Herrera, who they every now and then will pick in the test squad and not give a game to. He was Pakistan's best batter in the practice game for the Shaheens versus the West Indies here in Islamabad. Scored 74 of 73 and 80 of 80. So brisk runs And yeah, he's averaging 52 plus in first class cricket. So I think now is the time to hand Mohammad Herrera his debut. But knowing Pakistan, I have this inkling that Imam will play.
Yeah, again, going back to our point from before, there's no real reason in bringing Imam back. They know what Imam can do, and I think Varun just put his stats up there. He's got a match factor at Rawalpindi of he's 112% better at Rawalpindi, and he's 20% worse at every other ground, right?
Yeah.
Every other ground in Pakistan. I'm not against Imam coming back. He obviously has good batting talent. Like he's not a dud, right? But what's the point in bringing back a 29-year-old for this series when you have a younger player that we all want to see? And you know, I don't like it when Pakistan just become the team that automatically play younger players all the time. You know, just for the sake of it. But this doesn't feel like a for the sake of it situation. This feels like a smarter situation where they're literally looking at this and going, okay, this test series doesn't matter as much. Can we bring him in and play him from here?
Yeah, I just hope that they do give that test cap to Herrera because he was the youngest triple centurion in Pakistan cricket since Javed Miandad. He's Shoaib Malik's nephew, so he's got cricket in his blood as well. And he's done really well in first class cricket, so he's kind of earned his spot. He's come here on merit. And the counter argument is that this is a bit of a free hit and that you don't get a lot of these test series in the World Test Championship cycle where a test series doesn't matter as much. And then you're looking ahead at a fresh cycle where every test match will matter, forget series, right?
So can I ask you about someone else in this squad who I was a little bit confused about? Rohail Nazir.
Yeah, so former Pakistan under-19 captain has been in the system for ages and is still only 23 years of age, remarkably. I had Rohail Nazir on the Pro Sports podcast not too long ago, and off camera, he expressed his desire or ambition that he wants to be playing test cricket for Pakistan. And even though he's averaging like 31 in first class cricket, he said the last few seasons he's done well. I'm really happy that he's gotten rewarded. And of course, he won't play. He's back up to Rizwan. But Pakistan will need to blood a new wicketkeeper in red ball cricket at some point because Rizwan is in his 30s. And Rohail Nazir could be that guy. Another option is Hasibullah, but Hasibullah is injured. But this guy's done his hard yards. And yeah, I mean, it'll be good for him to spend some time in that dressing room.
Okay.
Yeah, I like him. He's a good kid.
Here's my question.
Okay.
It's a home series.
Yes.
Mohammad Rizwan is definitely going to be wicket-keeping. Why do you need a backup wicketkeeper in this squad?
That's also a very, very fair question.
Maybe I mean, we just talked about this with other players, right? Like you talked about it with other spinners. Like it feels like something weird is about to happen. Really? And Rizwan is about to be dropped again or something because like it's not like most teams in the world. When was the last time you saw a team travel with a genuine backup wicketkeeper for a home squad? Like you just don't do that. If someone gets injured, you just bring in a wicketkeeper, right? Like
that's true.
I don't know. It's making me feel icky, and I'm sure it's nothing. I'm sure it's what you said. Maybe they want, they see him as a future leader and everything else. Behram, it's weird. It's a weird thing to see a back, and because like I looked at him and I was like, oh, okay, he's a wicketkeeper, and I thought maybe he's just one of those England wicketkeepers. He's not really a wicketkeeper, but he is. His first class average is 31, right? Like it's a wicketkeeper's average. I like that you like him and that he's a good kid. Obviously, he has a good head on his shoulders and everything else. But he's played 40 first class matches. He's got an average of 31, and he's in this squad. Just a little bit confused at exactly what is going on here.
Yeah, well, two different things could happen over here, right? Either they just have him over there for exposure that he gets to train with the first team, or if Jarrod is correct and Rohail Nazir ends up playing a test match, CS, I want you to make a reel out of this because this is reel-worthy content if that actually happens.
Well, it's just, there's something weird going on here because you just said they want him to get experience, right? Fine. Why does he have to be in the squad?
Yeah, I think
Ben Folkes
would
travel with the England team for ages. He would always be there training. He was never in the squad. They brought him along, as you said, so he understood professional. They got him to the level they wanted. They wanted him to work. I think he was working with Bruce French at that stage. They wanted him to work with a specialist wicket-keeping coach. They had a special wicket-keeping coach. When Bairstow's out on the field, he's working with Ben Folks, right? And that made sense for a long period of time. We all understood that. He wasn't in the squad because, especially when you have a situation where you have a player who has been randomly dropped at times without any rhyme or reason. I don't know. It just makes me feel a bit weird. Now, I don't want to say that they are going to drop Rizwan because I don't think they are.
Also, he's white ball captain, so that would like stir up a lot of shit, right?
But my bigger question is, why do you feel the need to put this person in a squad notification? Just there's something wrong from that with me. But there we go.
Maybe they want him to be Rizwan's understudy, or maybe
he can be his understudy without being in the squad.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Very, very valid questions.
Oh, here we go. Varun said, does Rizwan play as a batter only then?
Maybe that's Rizwan's future anyway, because do you want to burn Rizwan out? He's one of Pakistan's most important batters who, if he only or just bats, could potentially go on till 36, 37. But if he's also keeping, maybe you burn him out earlier. I don't know. These are all like very, very valid questions to ask. Maybe in limited overs, if Pakistan are to trust Mohammad Haris at some point, Rizwan cannot keep. That's one.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen this before, haven't we? We've seen McCullum, and who's the other one?
Sangakkara.
Sangakkara, but no, someone else more recent who now I've completely forgotten the name of. It's a bit of a trend in modern cricket. I don't really understand it because I want my wicketkeeper to be a frontline batter so that I have more flexibility within my side. Look at this young fella's record at the moment. He's not going to come in and be a top test batter. Like, there's nothing in his record that suggests he's about to do that. It doesn't mean he won't over time. He's still quite young. Yeah. Anyway, there you go. I throw these things out here. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good conversation to have, and if you are right, then that's some viral content right there. But anyway, let's talk about the batting a bit, right? We haven't discussed the batting in Pakistan. Do look like the better batting side on paper. Of course, Shan Masood just struck 145 in South Africa, and he'll be opening the batting with either Imam or Herrera. I'm pretty sure they're going with Babar at first drop again, even though I think he should be playing at 4. But I don't see that happening. I think Babar at 3, Kamran at 4, and then Saud Shakil at 5, with Rizwan and Salman Ali Agha at 6 and 7. That's a really deep batting lineup. It's a strong one, especially on home turf. And there are a lot of good players of spin in there, right? Saud Shakil might be one of the better players of spin globally right now. And then you've got the likes of Kamran Ghulam, Rizwan. Even throw in Salman Ali Agha over there. He does all right versus spin. Whereas the West Indies, they might not have like out-and-out superstars, but you've got the experience of Craig Brathwaite. Not in form, but he's experienced. And then, Mikael Louis has excited in recent times. Alec Athanaze is in a rich vein of form. Struck 99 and 58, not out in the practice game. And he's someone who, is touted to be someone who can really cut it at test level for West Indies. Justin Greaves just recently hit a ton versus Bangladesh. Kavem Hodge, of course, we are the Kavem Hodge hive. Nothing else needs to be said. And Amir Jangu is in the squad, who is a wicketkeeper batter, and in his debut ODI game, scored that unbeaten 104 off like 83 deliveries to win an unwinnable game versus Bangladesh in that ODI. So Kevin Sinclair adds a bit of depth as well. It's not a batting order that will just fold, I feel. This batting order will compete, and this West Indies team is by no means a walkover.
No, a lot of the West Indian players now are usually playing on wickets that rag as well.
Yes.
So when they come to Asia, they might not be very good, but they're used to playing on these sorts of wickets. Watching the Super 50 at times. In fact, I think I saw Amir Jangu in the Super 50. Some of the wickets were like that was what Akib ball was made for. Like, how do you bat? How do you bat on this? If there was one, actually, I think it was Rakib Cornwall was bowling on one, and I was just like, he might be the best bowler of the world on this kind of surface because I don't know how anyone else is going to handle it. So yeah, I think there's no great batter in that lineup, right? And there's no probably incredibly competent test batter in that lineup, but having watched them over the last couple of years, they're starting to put together probably a slightly stronger lineup of players who can average between 35 and 42 at Test cricket. And they do keep finding people like Jangu and Graves who have the ability to come in and make hundreds. It wasn't that long ago that like no one in West Indies cricket could make 100, and that
Yeah.
doesn't quite feel like that is the case anymore.
Yeah, they've also got Casey Carty, but I feel like only one of Carty or Jangu can play this test match, or at least the first test, because I don't see them dropping Greaves or Hodge. Those guys, and Athenaze, of course. They've been playing consistently now, and Greaves just struck a ton. So I reckon that one of Casey Carty or Jangu will have to sit out. And
Well, Greaves might
based on what you
play.
said,
Yeah, Greaves might play to give him a little bit of bowling, like a little bit more seam bowling,
yep.
perhaps as well, right?
Yeah, that's also a very valid point. But yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to see how West Indies fare on a Turner because I think they'll be better than England. I've got that kind of, I don't know, that's my hot take, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, it's still an exciting series in terms of, the cricket that we're going to watch. And even though there are no stakes on the line, I feel like both of these teams needed a breather. They needed a series right before the start of the next cycle to kind of figure out how they'll go about things in that cycle. And yeah, I guess let's just end this with a few predictions, Jarrod. And the super
Okay.
chats, of course. You want to do super
Yeah.
chats first or predictions first?
We can do predictions first if you want.
All right. So scoreline prediction for you in this 2-match test series.
Let's go. Ooh. It's so hard because if Gudakesh Modi's bowling as good as he can, it's 1-1. But I can't remember the last time I saw him bowling particularly well. I think after I said he could be one of the best finger spinners in the world, he has not bowled a single good spell. And so he played slightly better in the T20s. He might be getting his rhythm back there. I'll go 1-1.
Okay,
They'll find a way to steal a test match.
That's an interesting one. I mean, it'll be a great series if that happens. I'll play it safe. I'll go 2-0 Pakistan because I feel like, it's high time that they start producing results at home and the England series will give them confidence and they've got a better batting lineup. They've got better plays of spin, I assume. But anyway, highest run scorer of the series for you?
Let's go Bubba.
All right, interesting. I'll go South Shakil. Because he scored so many runs for Pakistan ever since he's debuted like 2 years ago, and these are his kind of conditions. And I mean, he's a left-arm left-handed bat, so he can potentially negate Moti and Warrican, right? That's just my 2 cents. Anyway, highest wicket taker of the series?
It should be Sajid, who Cricinfo still have listed as an all-rounder. Yeah, I'll go Sajid. I like him.
Yeah. I think that Sajid, Noman, and Abrar might share the spoils a bit, whereas Moti might be taking a lot of wickets for the West Indies. So I'll go Moti.
If he takes any wickets.
Yeah. I mean, we shall see soon enough, and predictions are always just predictions. But anyway, you guys let us know all 3 of your predictions as well. Scoreline, highest wicket taker, and highest run scorer in the comment section below. Let's have some super chats, Varun, before we end this podcast. We've got, I think, 4 lined up. Aditya Mani Jha is up first, and he asks, genuinely insane stat, that about Nikita Miller, which Jarrod mentioned earlier, how he averages 16 point something in first class cricket. And he's asking, are there any batting equivalents? Colin Munro potentially, who Aditya never thought of him as a test prospect, but he has 4,000 first-class runs at an average of 51 and a strike rate of nearly 100.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to happen as much with batting. I mean, Colin Munro, it's just because you haven't seen him in red ball cricket. He's actually, I think Colin Munro's he's one of those players who kind of made himself into a bit of a slogger, if that makes sense. He has this weird pickup shot that he plays, which he would never play in first class cricket. If you look at the rest of his batting, it's fine. I can't think of anyone with a record like that. You get a lot of these things in England with like first class bowlers you've never heard of. I think there was a guy called Mark Davies, who never played a test match for England. And God, I've just looked him up. Like, I can't, even when you put in his name, maybe I've got it wrong, but yeah, it's like he doesn't even come up on Wikipedia. On Google in your first search. But he has 109 first class games, 315 wickets at 22.42, and never played a test match. Right. And I don't think he ever played for England A. Do you know what I mean? In fact, he even left his team. He was playing for Durham and he ended up at Kent. So you see a lot of those sorts of players in England come through. And I suppose we've seen some spinners in Asia at times as well, that where they play on a particular first class wicket and they have that. I don't know what the equivalent would be in batting. It might be something
How
like we've seen
about
with Imam Al-Haq or Ollie Pope, where they just love one particular wicket that happens to be their home wicket, and that, means that they're overall. I remember at one stage, Alex Hales had a strike rate of 160 in T20 cricket, and it was like 190 at Notts at Trent Bridge,
yeah?
and it was like 130 everywhere else. And it's like he eventually evened that out. So you do see stuff like where you're so dominant on your home wicket. Shreyas Iyer, I think, was another one who in Mumbai averaged something like 60 across all three wickets in Mumbai. It wasn't even just one wicket. He averaged something like 60 and averaged like 48, 45 everywhere else. So his whole numbers put up. And Andrew Hillworth, who every Somerset fan for about a decade told me should be in the test side. I'm pretty sure I looked up his numbers and he averaged under 40 outside of Somerset and like 50 on Taunton or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Where you were just like, oh God, like he just makes runs over and over again. So you do see players like that come through. I should say with Morricone, he hasn't just taken wickets at home. He actually hasn't played as much at Sabina Park as someone like Nikita Miller did, who I think Nikita Miller probably took like half of his wickets at Sabina Park, right? But we've seen with Morricone, those sorts of wickets like St. Vincent's. Bridgetown has been like that recently. Guyana's like that. Like, he's just very, very suited to the specifically West Indian, lower, slower, weedy. They're almost like, I don't know, like Bangladesh, but the ball pops as well, like sometimes, kind of wickets.
Interesting. Also, before we go to the next super chat, I have a question that just came to my mind. Who are you playing as West Indies lone seamer, Roach or Seals? It's a tough one.
I mean, I would play Roach because I think he's just a better bowler. But Shamar Joseph is probably the one they want. But I can understand why they don't really trust him.
Shamar Joseph is not part of this test squad.
No, he's not. But I'm saying if you had him, you could almost make a case for that. Look, I think Roach is probably the best one. He's one of the best new bowler. Let's get this word out in a minute. He's one of the best new ball bowlers in the world, right? So you have the ability to get him with the new ball and get wickets. And then when he comes back on, he's not going to go too much. Jaden Seals is a very good player. But yeah, if I was going to make a decision between the two, I would go Roach.
Fair enough. Okay, I hope we were able to answer your question properly, Aditya. But let's go to the next super chat now, Varun. We've got Rohit Kumar Jha, and he asks, instead of Champions Trophy, he would have been more interested in a World Cup of Associates. Is the whole point of the Champions Trophy just to have an India versus Pakistan game? Hate the concept of Champions Trophy. I feel the Champions Trophy originally was just a knockout tournament, which they made into something where, the top 10 teams play. Oh, well, originally the Bradshaw and Courtney Brown Champions Trophy had more teams, remember? They had the USA and all of those teams as well. And then
it was made for associate cricket teams.
Really? But we do kind of have a World Cup for
Wasn't it hosted
right?
in Kenya and Bangladesh?
Yes, it was.
It was literally set up originally for those kinds of teams, right? That was the plan. And then around 2013, when they decided to dust it off and bring it back, they decided to make it like the Euros. So they completely had an about face of what it was. These days, to answer a question, yeah, it exists largely because of India, Pakistan. It's not just that though. It should be said that it's come back at a period where the ICC has made some political movements, right? So, they got a new CEO who then got pushed out because of his behavior, but they brought in a new CEO, and his big thing was the more cricket the ICC puts on, the more power the ICC has. And so the Champions Trophy was a big part of that. Then he disappeared, and that's probably where we missed the Champions Trophy. So yeah, I think there's an element of it kind of just being there. But yeah, look, we do actually have World Cup of Associates.
Yes, we do.
No one really watches them, to be fair. So I'm not sure, people like me and Behram will be watching it, but it's, there are qualifying tournaments that you can watch, and they are fascinating. And, having worked in one for Scotland, they're really high pressure situations, and all sorts of madness goes on in those. I think I've got no problem with the Champions Trophy being the top 8 teams. I think going ahead, it can't be one day cricket. It will probably have to be 50 over. Sorry, T20 cricket.
Hmm.
Because I just don't think there's enough ODI cricket played, and like no one's played ODI cricket for a year, and everyone's going to turn up at an ICC tournament. Like at least with a World Cup, you're going to have a bit of a lot. People are going to skill their stuff a little bit more. Like it's ridiculous that West Indies and Pakistan are playing this series, and then Australia and Sri Lanka are playing another series, right? Like
Hmm.
this should be time to prepare for a major. Well, I mean, I wouldn't say major, but they say a major white ball tournament. Um, I think that's why Australia played a bunch of ODIs recently.
Yeah.
To try and get themselves. They played against England, then they played against Pakistan. Did they play someone else as well? But I think that their thought was, let's play some cricket, get ourselves into a good spot. But yeah, so look, the Champions Trophy just doesn't make a lot of sense. It's never really made a lot of sense, and it's a zombie tournament,
Yeah,
right?
it
Like,
somehow gets resurrected each time. Like the last one was in 2017, right? And before that, you'd have to go to 2013. So it's very inconsistent in the number of years that are in between each edition of the Champions Trophy. But I do like
and it
the
has
white
actually been
jackets.
cancelled before.
Yeah. I love the white jackets, though. I love that touch. I think it's
Of course,
classy. Uh,
it's
although
not
I will
classy. It's
say,
just a white jacket.
yeah, but I will say this that in all of sport, I don't think there is any single tournament, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, where you have an easier road to the semis. You literally win 2 games over here, you're in the semi-final.
That's the problem. I don't mind the original knockout idea. I understand why they're not doing it because it costs them more, right? But realistically, a straight knockout from 16 to 1 is probably more interesting. We're not probably at the situation where 32 to 1 works anymore, and I don't think financially it would make any money. But
Yeah.
16 to 1 is, I think, a more interesting one because you can't lose a game,
Yep.
right?
You have to go
And
unbeaten.
so, yeah, and so there's an element there of, okay, you might, the team who wins this tournament might only win 4 games, right?
Mhm.
That's right, is it? Yeah, 4 games. But
Yep.
if it's 4 games where you can't lose,
Hmm.
that's very different. Whereas, as you just said, it's like India's schedule is quite easy, right? Like, and
Yes.
the other groups are bloodbath, but this one is quite interesting. Just on the Champions Trophy, by the way, I think it could be very fascinating if the political pressure keeps mounting and Australia or England decide not to play against Afghanistan. We could
Ooh.
have another Kenya 2003 or Sri Lanka 1996 situation here. And I say that as someone who has bet on Afghanistan to make the final.
Okay. All right then.
Right.
Yeah,
Based
I mean,
on, I think their cricket will be handy in Pakistan, but I'm also basing it on the fact that the political tension just seems to be getting higher and higher about this. It wouldn't surprise me if one of those teams is just like, okay, we won't play them.
yeah, England in particular, I feel, because it seems like, it's gone to their parliament as well. And
Yeah,
Australia has
that's
had this tiff with Afghanistan for a bit now. So that's a very, very fascinating point. And yeah, I mean, Afghanistan won't mind if they can get a free road to the semis, I feel. But yeah, I mean, let's see. It won't be good for the tournament itself because Pakistan is getting to host these games after, I don't know, 10 billion years. And then some of those games don't happen. That won't be nice. But anyway, let's go to the next super chat then, Farun. I reckon it might be the last one, no? Let us see. Oh, is Varun still around?
yeah. He's put it up. Why are you not reading it?
Oh, he has. Oh, it's Rohit Kumar Jha once again. My apologies, guys. He asked this time with Ashwin gone and massive drop of average on Indian batters. How do you expect test pitches of India are going to be now? What are the options? I think Himanish literally shared something today, right? In which he was talking about, or the piece was talking about how ranked turners are now working against India at home.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think we'd been talking about that for a while. Even when they had Ashwin and Jadeja, they were starting to work against them a little bit. I think they were going to move away from this anyway, is my guess. I think there was already going to be a movement in a different direction here. And so it had become so extreme that it was causing them problems when they toured.
Hmm.
And so I think with that in mind, I was pretty confident that they were going to change against it. So yes, I think we'll have maybe more even wickets. I still think they'll spin, but I think there'll be slightly more even wickets from here on in, where perhaps they will fall apart towards the end of the match, but you'll have to be a very good spinner towards the start of the match, which is exactly what India needs. That's what India needs. If you're
That's
going
what
to turn
India
up with a couple
did
of
versus England, kind of.
yeah, it's probably a bit more like that, isn't it?
Hmm.
So yeah, I would probably go with that and then see how that goes from there. And I don't think they need seaming wickets or anything else. I don't think they need to go back to the 90s batting wickets, but just a wicket where you have to have good seamers, good spinners in the first innings, and then in the second innings it falls apart and your skills come back into play a little bit. I think that should suit India.
Yeah, I concur. And that wraps up the super chats. So thank you to everyone who sent those super chats and to all of our viewers and listeners who were interacting with us in the comment section as well. That's it for this particular podcast, Overthrows podcast. And just a quick reminder, you can go to goodareas.co and bookmark that webpage. That can prove to be your one-stop shop for all the work that we do as part of this team, whether it be written content, videos, or podcasts. We'll be back soon enough. I think, there's a quick pick scheduled for this week as well. And then, yes, I mean, lots and lots of content coming up for you with the Champions Trophy coming up also. So that's it from us, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode and have a good week and good day. And goodbye.
I have a book out with Abhishek Mukherjee, and it is called Overthrowing Cricket's Empire. And it's about the stories of how each team beat England for the first time. We go all the way back to the demon Fred Spofforth getting annoyed at W.G. Grace for acting a little bit like Alex Carey. And then we come all the way to present times with Rashid Khan's England's redemption. We cover every single team to beat England in a major international, but we also talk about the incredible stories, like the barefoot basher from Fiji that almost played for New Zealand. In fact, this book is full of tales like that, like how Pakistan lost a top batter after he was on the run from an angry husband of a movie star he was having an affair with, and also how one future captain of his nation realised he might have to go out and bat at Lords and that he didn't own his own pads. Cricket was used as a tool by the Empire, but what happens when those nations grow up and get good at it? Find Overthrowing Cricket's Empire on Amazon today.